So in today's video, I'm going to be discussing if the Los Angeles Rams can make it back to the Super Bowl. Now, before we get into the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's jump right into the video. So every year, it is really fun to talk about the team that just won the Super Bowl and look at their chances of making it back to the Super Bowl, because with the team winning the Super Bowl, they're a team that's going to have a lot of eyeballs on them heading into the season, and a team that's going to have a lot of expectations because they're a team that everybody's going to be looking at week in and week out. They're the team that everybody's going to give their best shot to, and so every week for the Rams is going to kind of be like their Super Bowl because they are the Super Bowl champs, so they're going to get their best shot from every team that they play next season. So I want to look at the Rams and see if they can make it back to the Super Bowl. Now, we have to first point out the obvious, that getting back to the Super Bowl is a very difficult task to do. I think that getting back to the Super Bowl is just part of the whole story because there's a lot of things that have to go your way to even get back to where you were the year before, because the Rams, they have to avoid injuries is the number one thing, and every season is different in the way it shakes out. The Rams may lose an unfortunate game that can completely change the playoff seedings and can completely change who they're going to end up facing in the playoffs, making their road to the Super Bowl tougher than what they originally thought it could be. You know, you have an untimely loss in week 16, 17, or 18, and it completely shakes out who and where you play. And that can make the trip and the road to the Super Bowl even harder. So there's things that shake out every season when it comes to how your schedule lays out. When and where do you lose, and how does that loss affect your standings? Obviously, injuries are a part of it as well. And so getting back to the Super Bowl is very, very hard. Chiefs, they made it to back-to-back Super Bowls. They only won one of those games. The Patriots are the last team to win back-to-back Super Bowls, and that was all the way back in 2004 and 2005. So we already know how tough it is and how hard it is to get back to the Super Bowl. But we also have to take a look at the Rams roster. And if we're looking at the Rams themselves, I think they're a really good football team. In a way, I think they could be better than last year. Now, it is going to be tough for the Rams to be better than last year because I thought they were a really good football team last year. I really did. Now, there was a time last year where I really started to question the Rams and their mentality, because through the season, they added Odell Beckham Jr. and they added Von Miller, when you could really see the Rams starting to do their whole, F them pick strategy, just their all-in mentality to go to the Super Bowl and win. And during that time, the Rams, they had lost 3 straight games. And that's when I started to question if this was really going to work, because midway through the season, you go on a 3-game losing streak after you give up a whole bunch for all these guys, and you do a lot to improve your team, but it's off to a shaky start. And so for me personally, I started to question the Rams last year, and I didn't know if that was really the best strategy for them. Now, obviously, I couldn't have been any more wrong when it came to the Rams, because there was a video I made titled that the Rams were the worst super team in the NFL and NFL history, whatever it was. Obviously, I was wrong, but it was after a really bad Monday Night Football loss to the 49ers that they had last year. And the Rams kind of proved me wrong about that. They were a very good football team, and their strategy of F them picks really did work. So the Rams, I still think they're in that all-in mentality, and I think that this Rams team potentially could be even better than they were last year. Now, if we're looking at the players that they did lose, they lost OBJ. He's not re-signed. Now, there is a chance that he could come back to the Rams at some point. He's still a free agent. They could sign him, but he's coming off of that injury in the Super Bowl. But OBJ, he made a massive impact in that Super Bowl. It looked like OBJ was on pace to be the Super Bowl MVP had he not gotten hurt. So he was making a massive impact for the Rams. He wasn't putting up massive numbers like Cooper Kupp, but he was making an impact. He was kind of like their X factor. He was doing great things for the Rams. And so I do think that in a way, OBJ is going to be somewhat of a loss for the Rams, but I don't think it's going to be the end of the world for them. Obviously, they lost Von Miller. He went to Buffalo, and Von Miller came in, and he made a massive impact for the Rams, especially in their playoff run. He came up huge in the playoff run for the Los Angeles Rams. So Von Miller, I think, is kind of a bigger loss than OBJ, but at the same time, we'll look at the additions to the Rams here in a minute, and we'll see that I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world. Obviously, Andrew Whitworth retires, so they have a little bit of work to do on their offensive line to make sure that Matthew Stafford has protection. And then Robert Woods, who was injured last year, he got traded to the Titans. So there's obviously some guys that the Rams have lost, but really the biggest thing for me is the two guys that the Rams added to their team to go along with the talent that they already have. First, they added Allen Robinson, who is easily a number one kind of wide receiver, and he's kind of proven that his entire career. He's just never played with good quarterbacks, and you give Allen Robinson a guy like Matthew Stafford to throw him the football. The Rams legitimately have two number one wide receivers on their team now, so I think in a way their offense is going to be even more deadly than it already was last year. I think it has potential to be a better offense. And they just added Bobby Wagner, who played for the Seahawks, was let go from the Seahawks in a very unfortunate way. And you can tell that Bobby Wagner is going to be kind of upset. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder, especially the two Seahawks games. So they're getting a guy like Allen Robinson, who probably is a little bit frustrated that he hasn't been playing with the top level quarterbacks his career. And then you get a guy like Bobby Wagner, who's obviously going to play with a chip on his shoulder the entire season. That makes for a great offense, and it's going to make for a fiery defense. That I think the defense is still going to be just as good as last year, because then you have to look at their current roster. Obviously, Matthew Stafford coming in and over in that trade last year with the Detroit Lions, and that showed that Matthew Stafford was basically in the wrong spot his entire career. Cooper Kupp, who you could argue is the best wide receiver in the NFL, he had one of, I think, if not the best wide receiver seasons in history. They have Van Jefferson on their offensive side of the ball, so they have three really good wide receivers. You can't forget about Tyler Higbee, who I think is a very good tight end. You have the defensive side of the ball with Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, Jalen Ramsey, and a whole bunch of star-studded talent on that defensive side of the ball that obviously just got Bobby Wagner. And the offense and defensive side of the balls are loaded for the Los Angeles Rams. In a way, like I said, I think they have potential to be a team that could be even better than last year. Now, obviously, those four guys that they lost are shoes that you're kind of going to have to fill. OBJ had his spot in the Rams offense that, you know, in a way that might be harder to fill, but I don't think it's the end of the world in a way. Von Miller, I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world that they get a guy like Bobby Wagner who's going to be fiery. It's the offensive line that may have the biggest question marks just because of a guy like Andrew Whitworth and him retiring. But like I said, the Rams struggled for 3 games last year, had a 3-game losing streak, and I thought it was going to be the end of it, and I was wrong about that. You look at the Rams, and specifically at the playoff run, because obviously a team is good enough to get into the playoffs. And in my opinion, once you get to the playoffs, I think what really dictates your season isn't necessarily what you did in the regular season. The regular season in the NFL is by far the best regular season in all sports. But when you look at their playoff run, I think it's really what is most important and what you can define the Los Angeles Rams the most about when it comes to their season. Now, Week 18 did get a little bit dicey for them. You know, things may not have shaked their way had Week 18 not gone the way that it did for the Rams, because they got a break with the Seahawks beating the Cardinals, because with the Rams losing to the 49ers Week 18, that could have completely changed their entire playoff run. And that's what I'm talking about. Things kind of have to go your way still in the NFL, and obviously that went the Rams' way. But when it got to the playoffs, when it really mattered, the Rams just absolutely showed how good of a football team they were. Obviously, the very first playoff game, they absolutely steamrolled the Cardinals. They blew them out of the water, and they were on their way to becoming the team that we knew that they could and should be. You know, that's when you could really see that the all-in mentality was working. And the divisional game against the Buccaneers, that game got way too close than it should have. The Rams couldn't stop turning the ball over. But all in all, you look at that clutch drive that the Rams had against the Buccaneers to end the game. That really kind of solidified what the Rams are all about. The for the love of the game route that Cooper Kupp ran, and Stafford throws deep to him and gets him into field goal range. They win that game. So that was the defining, like, that's how you could define the Rams playoff run, is they were very, very clutch. And then you look at their NFC Championship game, they were down 10 going into the fourth quarter. They came back, they win that game against the 49ers. So again, Matthew Stafford being absolutely clutch when it mattered the most. I know the 49ers dropped a surefire interception, but we'll move past that part. But then you also have the Super Bowl itself. The Rams, they were down 4, I think, with just over 6 minutes left in the game. And Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, put the team on their back, and, you know, they showed what they were for the entire season on that one drive. And I think that that drive defines the Rams season. and defines their playoff run for sure. They were clutch the entire time, and Cooper Kupp is one of the best receivers in the NFL, and it just shows that Matthew Stafford, you give him a great organization, great talent around him, he's not going to struggle, and he's going to be a good quarterback. And you can see that Matthew Stafford always had the talent in the NFL to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He proved it year one with the Rams. And then you obviously can't forget to mention the defensive side of the ball. Both the offense and defense in the Super Bowl were clutch, both in the NFC Championship game and in the Super Bowl for the Rams. So the Rams as a whole, very clutch team. They have an unbelievable team, and their chances of making it back to the Super Bowl, I think, are very high. Now, they play in a weaker conference compared to the AFC, but they do play in the toughest division when it comes to the NFC. But I still think, if we're looking at the schedule, I think the Rams will make a whole video predicting the NFC West and their schedule and their record. But I think right now the Rams are a 12-5 football team heading into next season, and they have potential to get back. They have Stafford, they have Kupp, they have Tyler Higbee, they have Allen Robinson, they have Van Jefferson, they have Aaron Donald, they have Bobby Wagner, Leonard Floyd, Jalen Ramsey. This team is loaded, and you can't forget Sean McVay. So if we're looking at the Rams, how their season shaked out last year, how their free agency went, you look at the guys that they lost, you look at the guys that they've added, the Rams are a very good football team, and I think it's going to be a very hard task for the NFL itself to dethrone the Los Angeles Rams. But again, like we mentioned, things have to break the Rams' way. But on paper right now, I think the Rams have a very, very good chance of making it back to the Super Bowl. But those are my thoughts on if the Los Angeles Rams will make it back to the Super Bowl. Give me your thoughts down below, and I'll see you in the next one.